Yeah, yeah. I was just telling you, the artwork here is done in resin.
Right.
So each of these different colors is taped up individually.
Right.
And then the color gets added to the resin.
Okay.
And then the resin's applied.
Right.
And then when it dries, just at the right time, kind of like a hard cheese, you pull the tape.
Right.
And then you get this fairly clean line that
Right.
comes out.
Right.
Then that line has to be trimmed up with sandpaper to get perfect, to get that really crisp edge. So that's all done by taking a razor blade and folding some sandpaper over it and cleaning up each of those.
Oh, wow.
And so each color has to get that on each side.
Right.
I'll do both of these stripes at the same time, and
Right.
2 stripes, and so on.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a sort of an old school art that you don't see much of. A lot of times what people would do with the stripe type of thing like this is they'd apply that with paint
Right.
and airbrushing.
Okay.
But this is the way things were done in the 60s, which is, and the 70s as well.
Yeah.
So this is to try to make it as authentic as possible.
Oh, thank you for that.
For your 60s.
Well, I mean, it just looks amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, check out those lines.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
So the other good benefit about doing them in resin is that they won't fade
Right.
over time.
Right.
Whereas your paints will kind of fade in the sun and
Right.
age. This will age really well. And another side of the board is done in this kind of, a little bit off, almost like a greenish tint
Yeah.
glass. It's called Volan, which is the type of glass that they used in the early days of surfboard building.
Right.
Because all that you had was stuff for the boat industry.
Okay.
So later on, they developed fiberglasses for surfboard manufacturing, which were more clear.
Right.
The finish on those is called silane, but this is a Volan finish.
Right.
So that's the difference there.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily a strong cloth, but generally it's a little bit heavier weave. So
Right.
it makes them really good and hard.
Right.
And, and then the triple stringer is a Bologna. Bologna is locally sourced from Coffs Harbour.
Right.
So I prefer to use that over cedar or anything like that because that generally comes from Africa.
Right.
Nowadays we don't have a lot of Australian cedar in our marketplace.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I use. And then the fin and the leg rope bridge are made from the same material. That's fin panel that I make up, and then I make the fin as well.
Cool.
So the fin's perfectly suited for the board.
Yeah.
That's your logo. It's my logo here. That's actually a wood coin that's inserted into the board.
Right.
So it's set in there. It's just printed with the color on top of it.
Okay, I can see.
Yeah, so that's an actual embedded part to the board.
Very nice. And tell me a little about, when I was going to order this board, I was looking online at all your different designs, and I saw this Continental. So what does that mean? What's Continental?
It kind of is a throwback to the old classic cars of that era.
Okay.
You might have heard of a Lincoln Continental.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the Lincoln Continental was mostly famous for having suicide doors, which opened the wrong way
That's
out.
right.
But it also was just a big classic cruiser, all about comfort and style, and just
Right.
just moving like butter, and
Yeah.
just a really smooth ride, and also just stout and really well built and
Yeah.
and classic,
Yeah.
So that's kind of where that name comes from, is to kind of evoke that type of
Okay.
of feeling.
Okay. And this is a 10-foot.
10-foot. Yep.
So when you're making these sorts of, do you call this a Malibu, or what do you call it?
I just call it. It's more like a traditional '60s longboard.
A 60s longboard. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would call it.
All right.
And the traditional part, what makes it really traditional is that the curve of the deck line
Right.
is quite flat.
Yeah.
And there is some curve there.
Right.
But what that's for is that it helps the board to achieve the maximum trimming, which
Right.
is just cruising along the way at
Right.
the highest speed
Okay.
with minimal amount of effort.
Right.
And also the paddling speed is up there. So this is actually a rocker that that I've gotten from an old 60s Hap Jacobs board.
Right.
That was a 10-2.
Okay.
And so I got a stringer out of an old board that had come apart.
Right.
And have really studied that curve.
Okay.
And then had the guys who build blanks up in Currumbin, I've had them cut the stringer line and glue the blank to that curve specifically.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
it's quite authentic.
Yeah, well, Brian, it just looks fantastic.
Oh, I'm so glad.
I mean, it's way past whatever I thought.
Oh, good. Well, that's
Incredible.
job done then.
Yeah. Absolutely.